Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge.
I'm Ashley Sledge.
Let's talk horror. Today we are joined by fellow horror enthusiast, the hot horror queen, Kerri King. Kerri, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. Nice to meet you guys.
It's so nice to have you on.
Yes, so great to see you.
We got Ashley.
She's been starting a let's get Ashley on Twitter.
Yes.
Oh,
Twitter.
I've been on that train for a long time. So on today's episode of Didn't See That Coming, fellow campers, we are going to be talking about Sleepaway Camp, a movie that means a whole lot to all of us. So Kerri, before we actually get started in our review, so to speak, of the movie, do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen Sleepaway Camp?
I do exactly remember how old I was. I was actually 14 and I snuck it out of a Blockbuster and left money on the counter.
That person's watching this right now like, fuck, I knew it was her.
I didn't do it once, I did it twice.
What was the other movie?
I returned it. So
I got to know, what was the other movie?
I did it twice with Sleepaway Camp.
Oh, that's
Because I knew
awesome.
my parents wouldn't let me watch it, and I didn't have any friends that had it. I was the one showing them. I'm like, we've got to see this. Like, this is not going to be. They're like, oh, well, it's just a slasher. Like, I've seen Friday the 13th. I'm like, no. I was like, but it happens at a camp. There's a lake. I'm like, no.
Not the same.
No. And before we do start, everybody, we do want to make sure that we say this. Spoiler alert. Obviously, this is Didn't See That Coming, so we will be talking about the end. If you haven't seen this movie, please watch it. It's free on Tubi right now, Tubi, however you say it. And it's so worth the watch. To me, this is a not good movie, but it's an amazing movie, if that makes any sense. The impact it has, I think this is the perfect slasher. Some of the acting is putrid, but a lot of the acting is also phenomenal.
It's just a little cheesy.
Yeah, but this is a very much a camp movie. This is totally heavyweights meets Friday the 13th in all the best ways. So if you haven't seen it, please go watch the movie. You don't want us to spoil it beforehand because it will totally ruin it. You need to go into this one blind. So there's my disclaimer. If you're still watching and you haven't seen the movie, I'm sorry we're going to ruin it for you. But this is probably the epitome. For me, I think the two ones that I didn't see coming the most as a kid were Sleepaway Camp and The Empire Strikes Back, with the reveal that Darth Vader was Luke's father. Those are two that really got me. So to have you on to talk about Sleepaway Camp really does mean a lot to both of us. So
I'm excited.
The movie begins with some kids out on the lake with their dad, and a guy that is so obviously trying to get laid that he lets another girl drive the boat.
Yes.
They end up hitting the boat capsizes because the kids are playing a prank on their dad, and they start rocking the boat because those kids are the little pranksters.
You little pranksters.
What's he say? He doesn't say pranks. Schemers.
Schemers.
You little schemers. And at this point, the boat goes out of control. They're letting a girl water ski behind them, and she's screaming, "There's a boat!" And they end up hitting the people on the boat.
The scream once the hit happens of the girl in the water. Oh my gosh. It was so over the top. Every time I'm like,
I know.
Calm down.
Just the way the boat looks when it hits him in the head. So it is a sad scene because the dad dies. Then you have one of the children that he was with dies. We fast forward to later on. We realize that the daughter survived. Her name is Angela. And this is where we meet my favorite character in the movie, Ricky. And her favorite character in the movie, Aunt Martha.
Aunt Martha!
I love Aunt Martha. She is so over the top.
Why didn't we tie strings on our fingers together right now?
Shut up!
Yes.
That just won't do. Now, will it?
Not
So, one thing I want to talk about, Aunt Martha in this movie is so over the top.
Yes.
Do you think that was the acting style, or do you think that she was just trying to bring like her own spice to the role?
I think the impetus of Aunt Martha being so extreme was definitely a product of the times, because you almost had one of those characters in every slasher movie in the 80s, especially the lower 80s, when you were like mixing in like those giallo bright colors like they do with her scenes and the flashback scenes. But also, generally, I think that the way they cast her and how she's acting is making the obvious in the sense of her saying, like, for example, she's shady off the bat. She's like, don't tell him how you got these slips for camp. Like, just because I'm a doctor, that won't do. That won't do at all. She's like, I knew I almost forgot something with a little, like, she's definitely over the top. I think it was definitely an acting choice, but I think it worked because you see how off kilter she is, which makes sense at the end.
That's what I was just going to say, because it really, her being so off the wall really makes more sense at the end of the film. So they end up going to Camp Arawak is where Ricky and Angela go. And at this point, we meet Artie and some of the other cooks. Artie could be the most despicable character in any movie.
I'm not a fan of
ever.
Artie.
One of his lines, actually, is from where I come, they call him Baldies.
Oh,
you know,
it's so cringy. It makes me cringe.
Yeah, it is really.
And you see the other guys in the back, and they're like,
oh, come on, Artie. Those kids don't even begin to know what's on your mind. You know, like it's just,
they just laugh it off.
Yeah, they laugh it off. Like it's like a product of the times. You know, back then it was just like, yeah, we're joking, but the guy is so disgusting and so. I just don't like him at all. We also meet one of the coolest villains of all time, Judy, at this point, because she's really coming to her own, as Paul lets us know.
We were steadies last summer. I guess I'm not anymore.
And I personally, something that drives her nuts, I love the side ponytail.
Oh, that's because you didn't have to wear one, I'm guessing.
I'm sure I had a side ponytail.
I did.
No, I love the fact that she has a shirt that says Judy on it.
In case she forgets.
Yeah. Like that's so funny to me. So now one thing I want to ask you too, the two main, I think, antagonists for Angela when it really comes to the camp are Meg and Judy. I think those are the two main ones that are really the worst. Which of the two do you find the worst out of those two?
Well, to me, it's more of like an abuse of power of Meg. So she's supposed to be one of the counselors. She's supposed to be looking out for the girls. And we obviously see, you know, the dichotomy between Meg and Susie, the nice counselor, because Susie's trying to, you know, be there for her and just leave her alone. She's shy. And Meg's like, she needs to grow a pair. And, you know, she obviously wants to be the cool older chick that's the counselor, especially with Judy, because Judy's the cool mean girl and she's underage, but she wants to be seen as the cool girl, I guess. And then obviously, I think that not only, it's kind of strange to me because she has that immaturity of like almost like wanting to fit in with the younger ones.
Right.
But with what we find out with the tie-in with Mel later on, clearly she wants to be perceived as older too. So she can't pick a lane. She's just immature.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I've always had more of a disdain for Meg than I have Judy, because it's almost like you said, how Meg is trying to be the cool one. Maybe that's really what's pushing Judy to be even more of a mean girl. Like they're trying to impress each other type thing. So that's one part of this that always kind of got me there too. At this point, one thing that we're talking about while we're on the subject of mean people, they're having dinner and Angela won't eat anything. So they take her to the back to Artie to try to find her something. And this is where Artie tries to sexually assault Angela in the pantry. Luckily, Ricky catches him. And they didn't have a stunt double for this scene. So Ricky got repeatedly slammed into that wall over and over again for takes. And I don't think that he had a very good time filming Ricky.
I really like the character of I guess I don't think you said it yet, but I really like the character of Ronnie.
Yeah.
I guess he's the associate director or something like that, but like he seems like he genuinely wants to help like Susie. Like he's like, well, we'll get you some ice cream. Like which also like I'll wait for that. But like I noticed a few, like I said, like spoilers like along the way that I was like, oh, like if I just paid attention. But he's like, we'll get you some ice cream or whatever. And But then he like leaves her, and I'm like, why would you leave her in a pantry with a grown man?
Right.
And also, while we're talking about Ronnie, I've never seen a man fill out shorts better than Ronnie
Hey,
fills
he's
out
pretty
those shorts.
built.
Those are some short shorts.
You didn't wear yours. See,
Oh,
we could have
God.
had Ashley. We could have had the string, and he could have had the shorts. But
Yeah.
See, people would have been on board with the strings, but the minute the shorts would have came out, nobody would have been watching anymore. This dad bod comes honestly, okay? So one thing that I wanted to point out too, I want to skip ahead a little bit to where we get Artie getting what he deserves. There's a big pot of corn and he's doing it, and you see hands come in and they grab the chair and they pull the chair out, and it, the hot boiling water falls on Artie and he gets burned, and he's holding his hands up and he gets taken out on a stretcher. He doesn't die, unfortunately, that we know of.
He just kind of goes
but
away.
maybe he's disfigured enough to where his outsides look like his insides now with how disgusting he is.
It was an
But
amazing practical effect.
Oh yeah,
that was awesome. And it kept like they were smart with like the silicone use and everything too, because you kept seeing the layers of the bubbles and the bubbles and the bubbles.
Bigger. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, one thing, if you watch this though, when you watch those hands come in and grab the chair, those are so obviously grown man hands. Like, those are not child hands. So that's like you said, the things that you pick apart when you're watching it for something like this. So what was your feelings on this scene of him getting his burns?
Well, with the red herrings they set up, so obviously at this point we only know he has pissed off Ricky because he's tried to accost Angela, and he seems like the one that makes sense. But the fact too, I think that was smart is they have to jerk the chair several times while he's holding on, which was a good choice too. I thought jerks the chair several times until finally he probably grabs the pot partially and that rolls back on him.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a big man. That guy looks like he's like 6'3" and he's huge.
Yeah.
So I mean, he got his just desserts, but to be honest, out of all the kills in this movie, he seems like he lived. They're like, oh, will he make it? They're like, he won't be the same. I'm like, well, that's a shame.
Right. He's one of the people that you actively root for the slasher to get them.
Yeah.
So we go from here. Another scene that I want to talk about, and this is something I've mentioned in everything I've ever done with horror. If you have a character in a movie and his name is Kenny, he's gonna fucking die.
Yeah. and he's a total like goof, like
always. Like even in look, I thought I might escape the Kenny. Oh my God, they killed Kenny, you bastards. Sleepaway Camp, you got Kenny. I thought maybe with Boy Meets World, and then there was Sean, I was gonna escape it. But even Kenny got a pencil in his head, and I'll always remember he was that tall. If there's a Kenny in a movie, he's gonna die. And the Kenny in this movie was such a douchebag.
Yeah.
You got all the boys going out skinny dipping. Whole lot of man ass at this point. And none of the girls go skinny dipping, but Kenny takes her out on a boat. He starts to be an asshole and rock the boat, flips the canoe over. The next day they find him and he's got the snake coming out of his mouth, which is so ironic.
He keeps like teasing her about the water snakes, and then he has the snake coming out.
Yeah. And which is honestly, in a movie that's full of really, really good practical effects, this is the one that doesn't look so good. The body does not look that good here to me, but I love the over dramatic, how the hell did that get there? Then he runs over and flips the canoe and you see him with the snake coming out.
Yeah.
And then you got the sheriff with the awesome mustache. Did you notice the mustache thing?
I did, but what stood out to me the most is where you start to see the pattern of Mel making excuses of, we don't have to tell the parents. Like, we're going to lose.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're so shady. Like, he's like a snake oil salesman, and he's always got the cigar. That just makes it worse, know?
The fact that I want the money over the safety.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, we don't need to wear masks. Just fix the economy.
It was the 80s. It was like the Wild West at a camp. Like, it was probably realistic, to be honest and fair, but he's so creepy. Like, I wouldn't want to be in a room alone with him just as much as I wouldn't want to be in a room with Artie. So
yeah.
Ugh, what's wrong with Meg? Oh my God, what's wrong with Meg?
Well, and then at this point, something I want to talk about. Angela's walking to go meet Ricky at one point, and they throw a water balloon at her from the roof. Again, guys, something else I want to clarify. We're not going to discuss every single point of the movie.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin, as much as we're spoiling it, there are scenes that I do want you to watch for yourself so you guys can have fun with the movie too.
Mm-hmm.
But when Angela gets hit with the water balloon,
it's like the most dramatic, falls down.
Ricky comes up, I'll beat your asses, you fuckers. Like,
It's
I'll kill you. I'm gonna kill you.
Yes. And the reason that we're mentioning this scene is because the main guy that threw it, Billy, they're about to go play a baseball game, but he has to take a massive dump, as he says. He goes into the bathroom. And now this is another scene that I really do have a problem with. And there was a reason why I included this scene. You see the person while he's in the bathroom, they put the broomstick through the doors to lock him in the stall. And then immediately you see a hand cut through the window and put the beehive in there, and they start shaking the beehive. And
they're really fast. Okay, they got around really fast.
Yeah, how did they lock him in and then get out with a beehive in that quick amount of time? Again, it's the magic of the movies. I get that. But this totally, maybe this is another red herring where they want you to believe there's more than one person doing
what I was
this.
gonna say. I always thought, well, the first time I saw it, and even the second time I was like, oh yeah, there's just one. But I thought that I was like, they'd have to move around the cabin really quick, and it's daylight.
Right.
And you have a beehive. Like, you can't hold the beehive, like that. So that's one scene. But when we're back to the practical effects of this scene, how good it looks. Because like I said, they shake the beehive and it falls in there, and he's trying to get out, but he can't get out. And then finally the door breaks and he falls, and you just see the bees going up his arm and covering his face. And it's such an amazing scene.
Oh yeah, that's really cool.
I'm allergic to bees.
You have an excuse from Mel.
Yep.
It's an accident.
Well, it was an accident. It was the bees. And he's starting, even though he's acting tough, I think you could at this point really start to see that he definitely suspects something's up. Now I want to bounce to another scene. I know I'm bouncing quickly, but another scene I really want to talk about is the baseball scene. They're all out playing baseball, and
the boys.
Yep, all the boys are playing baseball against the counselors, and you got Ricky who's playing shortstop. And one of my favorite lines in the whole movie is this right here.
No problem, Gino. This guy blows dead dogs. Just lay it in there.
Eat shit and die, Ricky.
Eat shit and live, Bill.
So as you guys seen, that's something that I've said eat shit and live since I can remember. If you scroll through my Twitter, you'll see me saying that a whole bunch to a past president. But I just think that this also shows how campy this movie can be and how it really is like a summer camp. That's how, this guy blows dogs, like, eat shit and die, Ricky. Eat shit and live, Bill, which is such a worse insult.
Right.
But that's how, was something
like
we were talking about.
Kids.
Yeah, we were talking about before we were filming, like when they cover the kid's face and they get bare ass in front of him and he does the sit up right into the ass, or when they do the whipped cream on the kid, like this is something
Mozart,
that
poor Mozart. He gets
Mozart. He's always getting it.
Yeah,
the shaving cream. Then he gets in trouble for getting the shaving cream. Like, clean yourself up. I'm like, he's just shaving.
I think it's even funnier. Like, again, sign of the times. Like, he has like a fucking Bowie knife.
Yeah.
That he's chasing him with. Then the counselor's like, give me that. You'll get that back at the end of the summer if you're lucky. It's such a fucked up scene.
Boys will be boys.
Yep, boys will be boys. Well, while we're on the subject of scenes that have one-liners that really got to us, I think another scene that especially maybe affected the girls more than it affected me is this one with Judy.
She's a real carpenter's dream. The light is a board and needs a screw.
So, that's another scene that I quoted a lot as a kid. She's a real carpenter's dream. Flat as a board and needs a screw. Like, she's so mean. Like, that's such a mean thing. And even like when you're watching movies, she's like
a mean girl.
Yeah, she doesn't shower with the rest of us because she don't have no hair down there. It's just like girls can be so mean when they're teenagers.
Susie gets a one in that one. She slaps her.
Oh yeah.
Tells her to F off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go Susie.
Go Susie. Yeah.
And I love that when Susie slaps her herself, she's like,
So dramatic. So dramatic.
So, and this one thing that me and Ashley have talked about, and I would like to talk to you about this. I am not a girl, obviously. There is no Angela Baker here. But I get a scene that is hard to watch as a dad of two little girls is actually Judy's death scene. Yeah. Now I don't think you would die from this.
It would hurt really bad though.
Getting a hot curling iron in the vagina I don't know if she dies from her face being covered with a pillow and she's suffocating because she's losing air from screaming so much. But then you see like the hands come up, which honest, yes, that is the worst thing in the world, and I can't possibly imagine how bad that would feel. But man, Mel, you can't blame this on an accident, buddy.
Right.
And that was the only one, to my recollection, where the killer made an attempt to hide the body because she moves the bed and dumps Judy behind.
Yeah.
Pushes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else is just exposed. The only one that was kind of hidden was Kenny in the canoe.
Right.
So that was meant to be found. I feel like Judy, it was like, I'll hide this dirty little secret. Like maybe she was worth finding right away.
And we were talking about Mean Girl Meg.
Mm-hmm.
One scene, now we have to bring this scene up because this is something that Ashley and I we missed this a little bit. Meg picks Angela up because Angela does not want to go in the water and she throws her in. Yeah. And now Ricky, at this point, Mel's accosting Ricky, I know you're doing it, you son of a bitch. Mm-hmm. Well, Ricky runs and he gets Angela out. Now, as they're walking up the dock, there are a bunch of little kids playing in the sand. And they all start throwing sand at Angela.
Mm-hmm. Well, both of them.
Yeah. Well, and then at the end, they take, I think it's Ronnie actually, he takes the kids out to the woods, and then he gets a call to come back. And when he goes back out to the woods, we see that all these kids are dead. And at first, and then they throw up, and we didn't quite get that the first time we had seen it. But then on a rewatch, we're like, oh, that's why she killed those kids, because they were picking on them when they were coming back up and throwing sand at them, kind of literally rubbing salt on the wounds at this point. So that's a scene too that we really felt like was like, oh, on the second watch, that's why those kids are dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of saw it too. I was thinking that maybe they were the kids on the beach, but maybe because, Mel and Ronnie are talking, and eventually they make a comment about how there's only like 25 left when they combine cabins before the Judy death. But I thought maybe too, because initially when he leaves the campsite, you see the assailant eyeing the axe. So I'm like, maybe one of them woke up and it was just to keep him quiet. I was like, maybe it was those kids, maybe it was different kids, because we didn't know everybody, But then afterward, I thought, I was like, yeah, that makes sense too, because after he comes back and throws up a smoothie, smoothie, right? Like I was like, is that French vanilla?
Right.
But yeah, then finds them, phones it in or whatever, and they're like, there's more.
See, and while we're on the subject of confusing scenes, before I give my interpretation, or before you give your interpretation, I would like to get your interpretation on this scene. We find out that the dad was sleeping with his friend.
Yeah.
That from the beginning of the film, Angela and Peter's dad, they caught him in bed with this other man. Then they're sitting on the bed and they're just pointing at each other.
Yeah.
For the longest time, and the camera's doing the circle around them, and it's just these two kids pointing at each other in the bed. What do you feel that that's a type of symbolism for the end of the movie, or what do you get from this scene?
I don't think that's what happened. So the way I always viewed this was, I think they had two dads. I think that maybe the mom had jumped ship and they were partners. I don't think that was the friend. That's not how I interpret it. I always thought they had two dads, and then there's a brother and a sister. And I think because when they showed the flashback of them being intimate in bed, the adult partners, I think that was the son, because she has that flashback around Paul, when Paul touched her and she's not comfortable. Well, I think that her brother was trying to enact what he saw adults doing, and I think that he molested her. And I think that's why she doesn't want to be touched, because he's like, it's not shown, but it looks like to me, because she's not pointing at him, he's pointing at her. I think he was going to like grab her chest or like touch her, how he saw them touching each other. And that was obviously like a PTSD trigger, like moving forward of this is like icky, like, you know, like this happened to me when I was a kid, like I still don't want it to happen to me now, like, and she could never get over that because obviously Aunt Martha wasn't giving her the proper therapy. So,
but the thing is though, we'll talk about that at the end, but that's just a scene that always threw me off because when they catch them in the act, they're giggling in the hallway, you know, so that's why I didn't know if they didn't know they were partners and they just caught them. Like this is, I think out of the movie, this more than the ending is the part that's open to interpretation.
Yeah.
I think I'm with you. I think the ending is cut and dry. The ending is the ending. That's what it is. But I think this might be the ambiguous part of the film because let's talk about a couple more scenes, and then we'll talk about the ending and how we didn't see this coming. But that's a scene that really got me. The last one I really want to talk about is not you, Meg. Meg decides to go on a date with Mel, the older guy, the guy that runs the camp, the most disgusting human being in the movie besides Artie. But while Meg is in the shower freshening up for their date, she gets stabbed in the back and the knife drug down her back, and she's up against the stall screaming, and she magically stays there until Mel comes in and she falls out of the shower, which is another scene that really bothered us watching. Like she just stood there waiting for him to come in and then she fell. But when Mel finds her, he gives, for one, the best acting ever. Not you, Meg. And then it was him. Yeah. He did this to get back at me. And then he finds Ricky and like beats the brakes off of Ricky. And then he turns around and he's like, oh no, not you. It can't be. And then he gets the arrow to the neck. Now in the special features, what you see is how they did this practically. It was on a line and it hit, and then they had an arrow on his back that came up.
Yeah.
And it looks so good. But even if you slow it down and watch it, it looks really, really good how they did this scene. But this is another one where you're like, fuck yeah. I'm glad that guy got what he had that coming. Yeah. Because he's the one that's like, we gotta stay.
There. Like he was just gonna leave him in the woods to die. And they're like, oh, he's still alive when like the medics find him or whatever, or the cop finds him, like, oh, he's still alive. And then like when that happens too, and all I could think of, to be fair, I was like, Friday the 13th. Yeah. He was right in front of the target. You see that? Yeah. And I was like, okay.
But with this scene too, I got so excited to see Mel die, because not just because of the creep he is, you know, he's about to go and try to sleep with one of the counselors that are much younger than him, but he's been the one the whole time, like, we got to stay. These are just accidents. You know, even though he suspects Ricky's behind it, if he would have called it off and sent these people home, he would have lived as well. So, you know, you reap what you sow here. Well, now they go to the beach and they see Angela. We left out a lot of Angela, Paul, Judy triangle because to me, you got to watch to really find out. And a lot of the stuff with Angela and Paul in general, he's the only one that she'll talk to at the camp besides Ricky. Yeah. But she's sitting there and she's holding Paul's head in her lap and she's stroking him. Oh, and then they walk up, they're like, Angela, Ronnie, and she stands up and gives the face. And she's growling, and you see Paul's head fall off of her, and the camera pans out, and she's a boy.
That's a twist. That's very twisty.
She is a boy.
And this is where we find out that it was not the daughter that survived the boat wreck. It was the son, Peter. But crazy Aunt Martha already had a son.
Yep, she wanted a daughter.
And that just wouldn't do. Yo, Angela, I think that name means angel. You're going to love that name, aren't you, Angela? Yeah. Now, this is where, when you were talking about him pointing at her, he would have been the molestee, not the molester, because she died. So maybe that trigger of I did this to her, maybe that could be the PTSD coming back. But with it, one question I've always had about this movie, does Ricky know?
Yeah. Does he know that she's a boy?
Do you think Ricky knows that she's a boy?
I think that it was hidden because he seems okay. So what you were saying too, I can see like both sides. So then he would have been the molester and the child scene, right?
Yeah.
But then she finally finds protection in Ricky again, maybe like the father was, and then she is kind of, maybe she's okay with assuming that role. And maybe she doesn't want him to know too, because she's like, well, you know, like he's protecting me. Like nobody's protecting me. I don't have anybody to protect me since I was young, and Aunt Martha's crazy. So like, who do I really have? Because you can clearly see when they show, you know, like her bandaged head and just like the look of like those dead eyes, like when she like pops up when Aunt Martha, when she's having that flashback of okay. Like it's just almost like a snap. Like it's like right then and there, it's like, oh wow.
Clean slate.
My life. Like when I didn't think my life could be any worse, like now this is gonna be my life. This lady's crazy.
Right.
And again, for those of you that haven't seen it, if you're still watching, Angela was Peter the whole time. She stands up and you see Angela's Peter. And obviously that was censored on our video. But the thing with me is that was such a great twist. To me, the twist wasn't the fact that Angela was the killer. You could have picked up on that. But the fact that she was a boy, you know, and he even says it, you know, Ronnie's like, oh my God, she's a boy. You're like, that to me is the twist. And one idea that got thrown around that was shot down very early in filming was having Felissa Rose wear a strap on. And her mom was like, oh, fuck, no, that's just not going to happen with my 13-year-old daughter. And they actually had a grown man wear the Angela mask and do that scene. And before they shot, this guy had the biggest nervous breakdown because he didn't want to do it anymore. You know, he had like the biggest, like crying, nervous breakdown, and everybody on set felt so bad for him. But then he pulled himself together and filmed this scene. And this is one that I can honestly say I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
It is so strange too, because clearly they did not like work with ratios, because like it's clearly an adult body.
Right.
And the mask is still bigger. Like it's like the little girl's head.
And no, I want to know. We've kind of reviewed the movie a little bit. Before we get into our ranking of the movie, I would like to know, what is your favorite scene from the movie, Kerri?
I think overall my favorite actually is, I really, really like the flashback scenes, but I really like the super bright Giallo colors. I like all of the like backstory, and I like where it's placed in the movie. It's super important where it's placed, because they're not, you know, it's kind of like in the beginning it doesn't make sense, which is good. And she's just like, oh, they have a weird aunt/mom. Yeah. And at the end, but honestly, I have to say, because Artie was such a gross perv, my favorite almost death, which I counted 11 confirmed deaths if you count the campers, the kids.
Yep.
My favorite scene was always him getting his comeuppance with the soup, and I was kind of like, eat shouldn't die, eat shouldn't live. For me, I was like, I'm kind of glad he lives, because he's like not going to be able to function, and his whole body was burned. They mentioned that, so now he can't accost kids anymore. He can't anymore. He's going to have to live like this if he even lives. But that was always the one too, and I love the whole that panning shot before the chairs even actually shook, and you see the person duck down, which should have been kind of, that was one of the things I picked up on too. Not only the hands, but you had to be kind of small, like you were hiding. It was a quick duck, and obviously very nimble. But the practical effects are just so good with the scalding. I love the scalding.
Yes. And like you said, I love the fact that his outsides are now as disgusting as his insides. Like, it's such a poetic way for him to go out, not die, but be disfigured and hideous like you are on the inside for the rest of your life. This is the you know, it's a Beauty and the Beast thing, but there's no beauty to this. This is just a fucking beast in the worst possible way. What about you, my love? Your favorite scene from this movie?
I just love Aunt Martha. She's so funny. I don't know. I like watching her.
See, I've still got to stick with my eat shit and live, Bill.
I knew you would say that.
To me, that's just the perfect insult. And I spent my summers as a kid playing baseball. I'm a very big baseball fan. Yeah. So when you have a slasher that has baseball scenes, I am fucking sold. I think it's absolutely amazing. So eat shit and live is going to go with it for me. Now we're going to do our skull count, we are ranking Sleepaway Camp. Again, we're not ranking this on production. We're not being film critics here. We're ranking it on how it affected us and what it means to us. 0 skulls being the worst, 5 being the best. I'm going to go reverse this time. My love, what would you rank Sleepaway Camp, 0 to 5 skulls?
All right, I'm going to give it a 3.
Okay.
It's cheesy, but it also is entertaining, and it is a good slasher film. So I'm going to say 3.
I'm going to go 4.5. Just because, again, we're not ranking it on production or acting or quality, but this movie blew my fucking mind when I was a kid. Like, it blew my mind. But I also, as a kid, and even now as a 35-year-old man, I have a lot of fun watching this movie. In between, this isn't a movie where you're just waiting for the next death or waiting for the next kill. The fun that these kids have with each other, even all the boy piles that they do, and, you know, whoa, yo, Angela, why you so fucked up? You know, the way that the kids
the
talk,
accents are so all over the place.
Yes.
You and you want to be in a movie? Can we wear shorts?
Right?
We're looking at you, Ronnie. But that, you know, like, it really reminds me of me being a kid. Like, that's how we talk to each other, and the pranks that they do and the way that they did. That was me and my cousins growing up, going to Bone Pool and, you know, doing that stuff. Like, that's what we did when we were kids. That's why I think this movie means so much to me. And I'm telling you, though, when I seen that girl with a wiener, it fucking blew my mind as a kid. I was like, I thought I had this shit figured out, and there's a lot I still have left to learn. And for something that is still very socially relevant with transgender, they did it in a way that didn't make it classless. Yes, she was a boy. Yes, she was a girl throughout the movie, but they didn't want to really push that in your face. They did that for a twist. They didn't do it distastefully. So I do very much appreciate that fact about Sleepaway Camp. And you, Kerri, 0 to 5 skulls, what would you rank Sleepaway Camp?
I have to admit, like, this is one of my favorites. We're going on pure enjoyment and just everything, like all the feels. Like, on a bad day, like, this is like a panacea for me. This is like a cure-all of, like, woes. Like, this will put me in a good mood. Like, it's goofy. I know it so well. I would rank it 4 out of 5 skulls. I love it. I think each time I watch it, I think I actually love it more. I don't get tired of it. I don't, like, I think that I could watch it 10 times in a row and I'd be like it could be cool background noise for all I care.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
and the thing, like you said, every time you watch it, you pick up on something new that you didn't notice the time before.
Yes, I actually had. I was thinking, okay, this is really weird. I don't know if you guys caught this, so ignore me if this is something you noticed. Before the boating accident happens, he's trying to get them out of the water. This is like a giveaway I never noticed before. Just like you said, you picked up on something. He says, "Come on, fellas." And I was like, what?
Ooh.
I never heard it. Go back and watch it.
Okay.
And I was like, "Come on, fellas." I was like, okay. I thought that was really strange. And then so another kind of thing too that I think kind of gave Angela away, like, earlier on, was Ronnie's bringing her in. He's like, you know, we can get you, he's like, let's go get some ice cream or something. And he's like, he's trying to get her ice cream after already mentioning like an ice cream sundae. And he also makes a comment, like fleeting comment, about how they're like candy, how they're like ice cream, when he's making his gross like baldies comments and all those kinds of things. And I thought that was really strange. But like, seriously, I was like, the fellas I never ever until this last rewatch heard the fellas part. And it's the very first scene. And also they're like, you know, we want to go sailing. Like, and they're looking at the campers like, do you think we could go there? And he's like, I don't know. And then they end up going. I was like, that's cool.
It really, that foreshadowing is really, really good.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. People look at this as just a like I said, I think it's a fantastic slasher, but the way that they do some placements of things and foreshadowing is really, really good. Like I said, I think this is the perfect slasher. It has a good twist to it. It has some really cool deaths. I love Halloween, but Halloween is stab, 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 stab. You know, there is some originality in the kills here. You get the beehive kill, the curling iron kill. You get the arrow in the neck, the head chopped off. Paul, I don't know if we mentioned that or not, but Paul, when she's holding his head at the beach, she's literally holding his head.
Mhm.
His head has been sawed off with a knife, and which would take a long time, by the way. But
do you think it was the knife, or do you think it was the axe from the campground? Because I thought there was the axe that she took from the campground.
see, that's what I thought. But isn't she holding the knife when she stands up and she's growling? Doesn't she have the knife in her hands?
You know what this means, guys? This means we have to watch it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like we got to watch it again. But see, you're right. 'Cause even on the cover, she's holding a knife and a bow and arrow, and I don't think she sawed it off with a bow and arrow. But I mean, I guess we'll have to watch it again, and I'll text you and let you know.
Yeah.
So, before we go, is there anything else you'd like to add about Sleepaway Camp, Kerri?
I think that this is literally just one of the coolest, most unique movies still to this day. Like you said, didn't see that coming. It's definitely a twist. Like, if people that weren't just into mainstream stuff, like, you know, they were so blown away by Sixth Sense, I'm like, do you want to watch something a little grittier and grimier? If you like a twist,
Yeah.
check out Sleepaway Camp. Because
Yeah.
it's gonna be a different kind of twist, but it'll be a twist.
It'll definitely get you.
Yeah.
So anything you'd like to add, my love?
I don't think so.
Okay. Kerri, don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, make sure you're following her. I got her links down here in the description. Here soon, you will hear her come on to talk about her first horror movie. We will be discussing that here in the future as well. Until then, thank you so much for joining us. It really means a lot to us that you came on. Everybody else, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.
Bye, guys.